Welcome to the Soul Revolution Tribe podcast, where we share stories, laughs, and even a few tears, but always a good time. We are about depth and real raw sharing through soul conversations and medicine. We are learning to find ourselves again and to be an unstoppable force of nature, ready to break down the constructs and rebuild them with love and acceptance at its core. We are the new world. Welcome back to another episode of the Soul Revolution Tribe podcast. I'm Jackie, your host, Shamanic Soul Guide and Remembrance Facilitator. And today I have my friend Paula on. She is a beautiful human being who grew up in Northern California to a big family who taught her really what love and belief in, and to create what you want. She received a bachelor's degree in health and human performance, focused on exercise science at the University of I can't even talk. Louisville, right? Kentucky. And she has remained there since. Currently, Paula is living her dream as a children's book author and artist and a lifestyle artist coach. And she is a public speaker, empowering others to really step into their dreams and make them come true. So we're so thankful to have you on today, Paula. And I would love to start by sharing a little bit about who you are in your story.
Yeah. So my name is Paula. I live in Louisville, Kentucky. And a part of my story is I used to just be searching. I always knew I was creative and had something to share with the world, but I didn't know what that looked like. I just knew that I needed to just live solely in the moment. And so I just went on a big long journey to bring me here. And a part of that journey was just starting to learn to listen to my heart and to love myself. And that's a big, long process to unravel. And in the journey of learning to love myself, it led me here.
I love it. I love it. And there's so many, when I always laugh when I get that question, because I'm like, which part of my life do you want? Because there's so many different journeys, mini journeys along the big journey. And that's what it's all about. That's how I see it, is it's not about the destination so much of how we got there and all the little nuggets along the way. So let's dive in, when we talk about the self-love journey. What are some of the big key components of somebody that says, oh, that sounds beautiful, I want to step into my dreams, but where do I even go when it comes to self-love? I've been so stuck in this voice of beating myself up. Where do I go?
Right. Well, you go to your thoughts, because our thoughts play such a big part in our whole essence and our whole being. Because if we're not mindful of what we're thinking, it's just gonna manifest itself. And so for me, my self-love was learning what my self-talk was like. And self-talk, it's it's very you have to be very careful, because if you get into a worried state of mind, or what ifs, buts, or if you use oh, I can't do this, I don't do that, that negating language, those negating thoughts give you negating feelings.
Absolutely.
And so self-love starts with the thoughts that you're having, and then watching how it plays out into the rest of your being.
Absolutely. Being your own best friend first. And that means yes, sometimes that means tough love, but not in a way you wouldn't tell your best friend and tear them apart. You can have that tough love of, hey, we need to show up for us, and still be in a compassionate, graceful space when doing it. So I always say, when you hear those thoughts that are tearing you down, that's not actually your truth. Those are different programs that you set up in your mind. And they're not trying to be mean per se. They're holding these beliefs that you set. So when you hear them, it's an opportunity to go, okay, I hear you, and I'm not in resonance with that anymore. So let's go under that. That's what I see the healing journey for me is going, okay, so I hear this thought, I'm not good enough. They all hate you. You're not going to fit into this mold. Who do you think you are? I go, okay. instead of taking that in as truth, because, I mean, even saying that, sometimes you can feel the gut punch of relating to that point of when we've been there, and going, I hear you, and what else is possible? I want to feel your pain. I want you to have the opportunity to express what you're feeling. And I also want to share different perspectives for you to try and to see if it feels better. And then when we do that, that's the true healing. And we can allow those voices then to not hold as much power in our situation. Doesn't mean that it disappears. Our shadow is a beautiful aspect of us. It's just showing us the contrast. It's a welcoming those parts back home to us is the true journey, I believe.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, that's embracing our dark side, right? And even too, like I'm reminded when you're talking about the shadow, like I remember I was out dancing a while ago outside, and I was dancing and the sun was shining on me and I saw my shadow casted. So I started dancing with it. What I love about our shadow is that our shadows, even though, like, if you think about when you stand outside and you have the shadow cast on you, it's just this augmented little figure, and it's actually really quite playful. But our shadows, right, like behind it, if you feel yourself, we're actually like standing in the light and it's really warm. And so if you think of like the light shining on you, sometimes it just casts this little like figure, but it's really not that big of a deal. Like our shadow side really just tells us where to find love. And like sometimes when the shadow part comes out, it's just time to go inside and to sit within, to really feel the warmth that's behind your back, like to start it's like to receive the love. If you're standing, if you're able to look at your shadow, it's because your back is to the sun, which means that you're receiving light to your back. And so our shadows just really are here to redirect us into teaching us how to love us. Like our shadow is meant to be embraced, because it's like, this is how we can love ourselves when we feel like this.
I would
This
say
is
it's
how
our truth seeker. Like that's the one that will spit the truth, and you may not like the truth. It might taste a little sour in that point, but it's because it loves us in that space, is to say, I can hold this contrast for you until you're ready to accept and love me too.
And it's always there for you when you're ready. And I'm someone who's slow with those changes. Like I am like, I need you to hold my hand until I get there. And I might cry for a little bit and then I'll get there.
Absolutely. Well, and that's the beauty of allowing yourself to cry and being like, hey, this isn't always an quote unquote easy transition. Like when you're excavating and you're pulling these things out, it's to be tender and love yourself through the process. And that's why I think that self-love and start to cultivate that before you start digging into wounds is so important. Because when you start creating this more love and accepting of yourself that way, yes, the shadow brings out, but starting with the nurturing of the self first, then allows you to kind of go deeper into the shadow. Because otherwise, when you're digging up those sore spots and you're not nurturing yourself in the process, that's when you can get into those spirals, and it can be more painful than needed.
Definitely, because if you don't tend to it just turns into a tornado.
Yes, absolutely.
Mhm.
Yeah. Another thing that was coming to mind that it kind of talks about this, because I know a little bit of the background story, is you wrote your own children's book, and not just wrote it, like you illustrated it. This beautiful creation that's birthed this year, and I'm so excited for you. So share what that is and that process and how that even came to be.
Yeah, so I all of a sudden one day I learned what listening to my heart was like. And so one day my heart was like, make a collage of a tiger face. And I was like, okay. So I collaged this like really cool tiger face. And when I finished it, I was like, oh my gosh. I was like, this looks like something a little kid would do. And and I told that to my boyfriend, and he was like, well, if you feel like this is something a kid would make, that's because this is your inner child coming out. And that's a really good sign. And I was like, oh, this is fun. So I posted that first collage on social media, and it got purchased within 5 minutes of me posting it. And I was like, what? And I loved it so much though, so I wanted to make a print of it. And so this is a story. And so I went to get a print of it made for my own keepsake. And the lady at the receptionist, she saw my collage. She's like, oh, this is so cute. It looks like it should belong in a children's book. And I was like, huh.
The seeds.
I was like, that's my childhood dream.
I love those soul nudges. They plant just in the right thing, so you start it sparks.
And so what sparked was because I've been making animals. I remember my grandpa, I call him Papa, my Papa growing up, whenever he would like leave or say goodbye, he'd be like, see you later, alligator. And I'd be like, after a while, crocodile. And he'd be like, see you soon, baboon. And so when Anne is her name, the receptionist, when Anne was like, this needs to be in a children's book. And I was like, it sparked something in me like, oh, what if I collage, I have alligator, baboon, crocodile, do those rhymes. I was like, what if I figure out what I'm not going to spoil the whole book, but I was like, but what if I come up with like other animal rhymes? And so I all of a sudden was like, I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this. And so it honestly, it came easy to me. Like it came from me listening to my heart and then just going and having conversations. And then one person just said something to me and I was like, oh.
I love that. And it brings in like not only your own childhood, but like your ancestry, right? Like grandpa, like a connection, your heart connection of something that was very passionate and love and warm feeling for you. And you're sharing that, and that's infused into your book. And it's creative, and it's not the typical thing that you see, which sparks this beautiful gift for these children as well as they see it. It's oh, I just love it.
Thank you. You have a copy?
I haven't got, you showed me little bits and pieces of it. I haven't got the official copy yet. And I believe, is it on Amazon now?
It is.
Yes, so that is going to be my next purchase. I've been waiting because I know that you were saying you were in the process. So backstory for everybody that is listening here. I knew that she was in the process and she was working with the publishers and it was coming soon. And it dropped not too long ago in that, and I knew it was that, but I thought it was just hard copies to start with. So if it's on Amazon, we're going to check. Tell them what it is. What is the title? How do they find it?
Yeah, the book is called Hang Loose Goose, and it's an animal rhyming book, and it's got other little patterns you'll find along the way. It has bonus fun animal facts, so it's educational, and the illustrations. So this is like some of the backstory behind what I was making at the time. So like you can find it on Amazon. Amazon. You can go like Hang Loose Goose book, and it's the first thing that pops up. But growing up, I didn't feel good at art at all. And so I didn't draw very much. I would always compare myself to others, which I've learned you don't do, but I did a lot of
compare apples and oranges.
Yeah, I did that when I was younger. And so I had a lot of insecurities when it came to what I was creating and even how I draw and how I color and shading and stuff like that. And there was something about I had the aha moment one day because I realized I love to collage, and I always have. And so I realized I could just do really elementary sketches and just like fill it up with colors, with cool colors of like cut out.
Beautiful. They're absolutely beautiful. Like I said, I've seen little snippets of it and pieces of it, and I've been waiting. So now I know it's officially out. I can get it now because for me, especially as a homeschool mom, I love those type of things, supporting people's dreams for one, and those different creative pieces that spark different parts of kids' minds. So it looks like, oh, I don't have to just draw and that's art. I don't have to just paint, that's art. Like look at all the other creative things that you can come together. Right. And the things that you put like Just look it up so you can see like what I'm talking about when it comes to her artist pieces. It's so beautiful of the pieces that she pulls together that you may not necessarily think that would all flow, but it's this beautiful masterpiece when it comes together. And it's just it sparks a whole nother creativity piece in my mind. And it's playful and fun, and it reminds us to be kids again too as an adult. Like I love that. And it still it has the alphabet in it, so it's like an alphabet type book, but it's more like I wouldn't call it just an alphabet book.
Yeah. Yeah, no, honestly, you can actually go to my website too, paulasharp.com, and you can get a little glimpse of like just the kind of art that I make in general. Like you'll see my inspiring collages that help me create the book, and then there's a link to the book on Amazon.
Beautiful. And we're going to drop that in the show notes so you guys know her Instagram and her website so you can follow. I'll even put a link to the Amazon so you can actually click right there too if you want to purchase the book.
Yeah.
Absolutely beautiful.
Yeah. No, I remember so growing up I like because I compare myself to like other people in their art. I remember though I always loved writing. I was a big journaler. And I remember like when I was in grade school growing up, I would be sitting down at the desk and I would have daydreams during the middle of class, right? And my daydreams were about like, how do I become an author like Dr. Seuss?
I love it.
Like these are just like the conversations I remember having with myself, and I always loved writing, so I continued writing. And I like wrote in journals. I loved my creative writing teachers that I had. They really like saw all the potential in me. And then there was something about me that was like, oh, I want to learn about the human body. And I just kind of put to sleep my like dream. I forgot my childhood dream to become an author fell asleep at some point. And so, but I continued writing almost every single day.
Well,
Almost every
now
single
it's
day.
beautiful because you also mirror. So yeah, you went to school because you wanted to learn how the body, but I believe the body is a beautiful piece of art too. The way it
Mm-hmm.
functions and flows, and so that's the other part of Paula is with the Human Garage Fashion Maneuvers coach is you get to make this artwork with your body as well in the whole healing process aspect too. But it's like I've done fascia work for quite some time, and it's like when I do it with you in the way, it's like everybody has their own unique flavor, and it's just this beautiful art like flow piece that comes through and in that space. And so I love that you're bringing you into everything you do, and it comes into like for me, that's my intention for the year is seeing my vision become reality. So making dreams come true. And that's like I know that's one of your passions and that's what you're doing as like as we age, we like forget how we dream, right? And we stop dreaming because if I allow my heart to go there, then my heart can get hurt, right? But kids, they dream all the time and big, like nothing holds them back. And it's like remembering that aspect of us and what is possible when we choose it to be possible. If we say, tell
Mm-hmm.
ourselves this is not possible, then guess what? We're setting our own parameters of our reality. And so, yeah, then of course it's not going to be because you're not even opening up to the possibility. And so that's why I always say I'm a remembrance facilitator is remembering who you are and all these little pieces and allow them to come out. And so for you, like when you talk about part of your who you are is that empowerment speaker and talking about dreams come true, like what is a message that you would share with the listeners on that topic?
Daydream. Let your daydreams run wild and try to remember your first daydream if you haven't been able to get there. And because it's those daydreams that actually come to reality. It's not our sleeping dreams.
Yeah.
So if you're zoning out in conversations or in a lecture or at your job or like wherever you are and you start to think about this beautiful reality,
Play with
Let it
it.
run wild. Go for it. Like it's those dreams that come true,
And bring
especially
your
when.
awareness to it. Because a lot
Mm-hmm.
of times we daydream
Mm-hmm.
and we don't even realize that we're daydreaming. But when we bring our awareness of, where does my mind go when it doesn't have to be anywhere else? It doesn't, its attention isn't being called. Like, where do
Mm-hmm.
I allow it to go? And so that's
Mm-hmm.
kind of like tells you like kind of where your heart is. And sometimes like, oh, I realize I'm daydreaming and it's a lot of heavier stuff. To me, that says, okay, that means I'm ready. I'm opening up to deal
Mm-hmm.
with this pain because I don't need to carry it anymore. And once I move that, then that beautiful light gets to come through. Because my big thing is like to get to the light, we have to walk through the shadow. We are the
Mm-hmm.
light. And that's what we forget. Like you when you're walking through the shadow, you have nothing to fear because you are the light. And
Mm-hmm.
shadow is light too. If you think about it, the black is still a form of light. All of it is part of the same spectrum. So we put this scary emphasis on it, but it's not its truth either. But it will sit there and hold the contrast for us, and I think that that's beautiful.
Yeah. Yeah, the contrast, it's how we learn, it's how we see it, even is what gives us like character and definition, it's what gives lines and accents and allows what needs to be seen to be seen.
Yes, gives us
Mm-hmm.
depth.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you
Mm-hmm.
think go back to the artistry, like you were saying, like when you're doing the painting and you do the shading and giving the contrast piece to the art piece, it gives it depth. It jumps off the page in that
Mm-hmm.
space.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, with my collages, I'll just do like a dark little line, and then I'll just glue it on and that one little darkness just adds texture.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
so much
Mm-hmm.
character, and in that I think that that's truly what brings it to life. Is in it like in that same like analogy, applying that to us. If we didn't have our shadow and we didn't have those like we would only be surface level. What you see is what you get, right? And our shadow
Mm-hmm.
is what gives us that depth, that mystery, and us both being like Scorpio. Like I think that that's we love that part as like the unknown. Yeah, it can feel a little nerve wracking, but there's also so much possibility there. So when you look at blackness, it's not just an empty void space. It's like there's so much possibility that can be there too. And like I choose to step into the excitement of that versus yes, you're going to have the nerves. I always say every time you hit an edge, you're going to have your sister fear here that pops in, and that's a good thing because that means we're entering unknown territory. That means we have the possibility to grow. Because otherwise we're still in our familiar zone. If fear doesn't come hang out with us, then we're comfortable. And comfortable is not where we stretch.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was having a conversation the other day with my friend because she's been just going through a huge transformation within her family and like setting hard boundaries, and she just said it's so hard, and I said, yeah, but if it was easy, would you learn? Do you think you would learn as much? And she said no. I said, there you have it. Like press into how much you're work, and that's for everything, right? Like that even goes for me. Like if it were easy on me, would it really help me grow into the beautiful person that I am? You know?
Absolutely. It's
Like
kind of like remembering like in order for a seed to flourish, it has to be put in the dirt to start with. And it doesn't mean
mhm.
that it's trapped there. We don't put it in the dirt to trap it there forever. It's allowing it to
You
have
have to
that.
stay there.
Yeah, it's allowed to have the right conditions for us to make a choice. And do I grow or do I decide, no, I'm going to stay here? And that's the option. And remembering that in everything we do, we always have a choice. Even when it doesn't feel like it, we have a choice. The choice may be a little more challenging to use our voice in places and things like that, but that's what the opportunities are for. And it doesn't mean that you're going to fail a lesson in life. There's no such like for me there's no such thing as failure. Like okay, so we made a mistake. Beautiful. I tell my kids that all the time and it's funny like their reactions sometimes or anybody else around when they mess up and I'm like, "Good job." And they're like, "What are you doing, Jackie?" And I said, "I want them to know it's through the mistakes that we find out what works for us."
Mhm.
They didn't fail. They found a way that didn't work for them in that moment. Like Thomas Edison said, like how many times did he try to find the light bulb? And he's like, I didn't fail at finding the light bulb. I found hundreds of ways how not to light a light bulb because it's the truth. And then when you look at it, that framework, it's like it's so freeing and going, I can't make the wrong choice because I know that everything's unfolding exactly where it is, and there'll be another lesson for me to come around and try again, because that's the whole point. Okay, so I didn't like the way that felt. Next time that comes around, now I've also made muscle memory, or like a fascial connection, or however you want to call it, where it resonates, is like I will have that pause moment of when a situation comes up again and going, oh, I remember, now I have evidence. I remember last time this didn't feel so good. Now I have a choice. Do I still do that because that's habit, or do I decide to be brave and try something different?
Yeah. Redirection. And even like what I'm like in talking about, like how there's no such thing as failure, I'm like, yeah, I'm like, if we failed, like we would die, but technically, like when we die, that's even like a celebration on the spirit side. I'm like, so there really is no failure, like there's just redirection, learning how to get along, because nature just is like, nature will blow through the waters sometimes and like
Yeah.
make the waves crash into the rocks. It'll make trees fall down and like uproot, like nature is unforgiving because but everyone learns to adapt and just to move on, like
Move with it,
literally.
not against it. The more we resist, the more it persists, and we're creating more tension. So if you think about it, like if we're both tugging on something, we're actually like our hands are getting raw. Where instead we could work together, and we both, like, they can't see us, but we're like going back and forth. Like we both can get what we need in that ebb and flow space. It's not one or the other. And so when we stop resisting and we choose to lean in, that's normally when things shift. Like that was showed to me in shamanic breath work once. I was going through, and a boulder came on my path, like this big boulder, and I was like, okay, what are you showing me? And I got the sensation of just putting both my hands onto the boulder. Don't try to climb over it, don't anything, just be with the boulder. And as soon as I put my hands on it, it was like this unconditional love like radiated out, and the boulder just disappeared, and the path shone brighter. And that to me was like spirit telling me, like, stop fighting the obstacles that are put there, because that's how powerful you are, is when you lean in and you trust and you embrace and you really hold that space of, this is here for a reason. My creator doesn't just throw things in randomly. Everything is placed for a reason. I'm here for a reason. So every time I sit and I doubt my own existence, my own worth, that's to doubt creation in itself. And so it helps anchor me back in of everything serves a purpose. That little mosquito that we think is an annoying pest, there's a reason it was created and it was there. And that's how I look at the whole world of we were made here to coexist. And we are separate, but we are one at the same time. And so how can we move together in a harmonized way versus constantly resisting each other? How can it be a win-win for all?
Absolutely. And the love.
Mm-hmm. That's what it comes down to.
Love and openness and responsibility, and especially in the way that we're headed, forgiveness, and remembering that if an energy is not for me, I give it away.
Mhm.
And really checking in if that's like a vibe you're trying to vibe with.
Yeah. So what is your, like, on the topic of forgiveness, how do you view forgiveness? Because I know I've had clients who are like, Jackie, I just can't forgive, and we had to reframe what they meant like by forgiveness. Because my view of forgiveness is a little different than what society has portrayed. So when you think of the word forgiveness, like, what is the definition that comes to you? What is it meaning?
Yeah. So someone does something, and I don't like the energy. It can be how they said it, can be what they said, it can be both how and what they said, like how they said it and what they said. And I'm usually like this. And sometimes when people say something and and it comes off at a certain tone, I can like read behind it, and then it changes me. I get frustrated. It brings me down a few notches, and I don't like when I feel like that. And when I get to a state and an energy, especially in my heart, where it's like, I don't like this, that's when I call upon the energy of forgiveness, because I'm like, this energy is not serving me. It's not for me. I need to give this away.
I love that. And
Mm.
forgiving. Like when
Uh-huh.
you when you forgive, it's forgiving. I
Because
love that.
I used to think it was a grandiose subject, right? Like I grew up, I feel like a lot of people maybe grew up I need to only speak into my experience. I grew up in a very Christian household, and they were like, forgive your neighbor, they talk about forgiveness, and I had so much resentment and anger towards what they would preach, but how they would also cast a lot of judgment and stuff. And so I would hold all of this like, well, they did this, well, they did that, well, they said this, well, how can it be that? Like there's so much that is just like held on to. And
Mhm.
even like the energy of shame and resentment and guilt that they would put on, right? Like those aren't energies that aren't for me. So little did I know that those were just micro lessons for me to in the future learn how to transmute and forgive them.
Yeah. It's like
For what?
forgiving it. For me, forgiveness is like dual fold. It's forgiving me for taking it in, forgiving,
Right.
like, because I take my own responsibility in that. And there's a reason why. So I have to forgive myself for even judging myself for taking it in the first place too, because it served a purpose. It served me for the time, in the lesson, and also the other person. And it's not that when forgiveness, I'm not condoning what somebody did to me or said to me or anything like that. I'm not making it okay. It's saying I don't choose to carry that energetic charge anymore.
Right.
Because really, when you hold a grudge in that space, it's not affecting the other person at all.
Right.
But we're holding that energy, that heavy energy in our body, and it's actually affecting us. So when we forgive, it's one of the deepest healings we can. We set them free because there's an energetic connection, but not in the way like you're condoning. It's empowering them to go, hey, I messed up and somebody still accepted me. It
And
doesn't
you
mean that you're going to be best buds. It's not saying that. You
can.
still have boundaries, but you also then aren't carrying that heaviness, and you're going, okay. And so I always say this to clients, that it's like this person said something horrible to me. I can't forgive them. I just can't find it in my heart to forgive them. And I said, why don't you start by first acknowledging and appreciating something from it? Because sometimes forgiveness, like there has to be steps, right? So, because otherwise you can say, I forgive, but if you don't truly mean it in your heart and you're not shifting the energy, it's not a true forgiving. And so, and then I'll say, okay, and what if you could do like the divine aspect of them and the divine aspect of you? Remembering, and I've said this multiple times, but I don't know if I've told you, there's a story of there's a children's story. It's called The Little Sun and the Soul. And it talks about how we came here and different people play different roles. And this little girl soul comes up and says, like, I'll play that role because the little boy wants to learn forgiveness. Or the little, I think, I don't know if they say he, she, whatever. There's two of them. And then the other one was like, I can do that. And then the other one was really, really excited, like, oh, thank you, thank you, thank you. But that soul was like, but you have to help me with something. Absolutely anything. And that soul goes, in order for me to teach you forgiveness, I have to forget who I am. I'm going to have to do horrible things to you to help you learn this lesson. And my ask is for you to help me learn who I am. And so for me, like that's such a powerful message. So even when somebody wrongs us, to remember in the back, the big scheme of things, they chose to play that role for us. And we have a possibility or an opportunity then to do that and hold their potential. And that doesn't mean that I can't control what they do with it, but I can still show them grace the way I would want grace. I embody what I desire in the world, and that's how I create change.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's I'm reminded how there's the term you can forgive, and it's important to remember why you're forgiving.
Yeah.
Because you have to know that an energy doesn't serve you, and you have to remember that, and it's really easy to let go when you remember why you're forgiving.
Yes. And
Because I
not
think
forgive to fix. I think that's the bypassing piece that most people, I want to fix the situation, so I'm just going to say sorry, please forgive me, I
Right.
forgive you. No, you don't want to fix it. You really want to create that energetic change.
Yeah, because people are like, oh, forgive and forget, and it's like, well, you don't want to forget.
At least remember the lesson.
I'm like, that doesn't sound healthy, because we can't just forget those lessons, like, because those imprints leave marks on our mind for us to tune into where it wants us to go.
Yeah. And I think that,
Yeah.
that even that statement is misused a lot of the times. Like when I think the original intention of the forgive and forget was like to not hold the charge. The wording like is a little different, but like when you forgive, let go of the charge, forget the charge, but remember, like there should be like another caveat, I think, to that part. And but remember the lesson and learn from the lesson, because otherwise you're just going to resource the same type of situations to learn that, to really embody the lesson. Because once we get something and we learn from it, and that's why we want to remember is going, okay, so but not so rigid where we're like, now I'm never going to love again, but it's going to soften that and going, okay, that hurt, but what is my part? I think it comes back down to like the radical responsibility. What is my part in the situation? How did I source this? And not that it's all on me, because I have all the responsibility of my experience, they have all the responsibility of their experience. I can't control, and it's not my job to control what they do and how they function, but I do have responsibility over my own being. And so it's saying like, okay, so this is the situation. It didn't feel good. I don't want to be in a situation like this again, but that doesn't mean I'm closing my heart off to things. That means how can I still feel and be, and what healthy boundaries can I set for myself? And knowing that, hey, I'm going to feel pain again. That's also part of, they call it growing pains or labor of love for a reason. Like the pain is inevitable. We are the ones who choose to suffer, continue the suffering.
Yeah, because it's those thoughts that we hold on to, the thoughts that keep us captive. Sometimes our thoughts pull us away from our heart and what our heart really desires. Yeah. Yeah.
I love it. I love this conversation. Is there anything you want to leave everyone with before we wrap it up? Like one closing statement, takeaway, something that's on your heart to express before we come to a close?
Daydream, my dreamers.
I love it.
Mm-hmm.
And allow those dreams to take form. It all starts with the dream.
Make it easy. The road to success is easy. It's not hard.
Absolutely. It's only hard if you claim it to be hard. I love that.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Paula, for being on this episode with us. And once again, check the show notes, get into her world, meet her, get her book, introduce it wherever you can. Like, she's an amazing human being, and I support her dreams just like she supports mine. So thank you all for joining us today, and tune in next time. Thank you for listening to this episode of the Soul Revolution Tribe and being part of our soul family. If anything in this episode resonated with you, please subscribe, leave a review, and share your takeaways. You can find me on IG at Grow with Jackie B, or on YouTube at Soul Revolution Tribe. I will see you next week for more soul conversations and medicine. Bye for now, and see you back soon.